Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Sam Norris here, the property investors broker, and I got asked a question recently, and I thought I would jump on and I would answer the question, I suppose, for all of you to hear the answer to. And that question was, do you get better mortgages, or is it easier to get a mortgage if you've got experience in buy-to-let? So can you get a buy-to-let mortgage, or is it easier to get a buy-to-let mortgage if you have some kind of experience? Now, it's quite a complex answer, actually. The easy answer would be not necessarily. There are lots of lenders out there who are quite happy to lend to first-time investors. So that in itself is not necessarily a problem. Take away the fact at the moment with the coronavirus and everything like that, it's quite difficult to get a mortgage, in any case. So take that away, because we have had some lenders recently that have pulled products specifically for first-time investors, or have said their criteria is changing and therefore they're not lending to first-time investors at the moment. But if we look at it, as the norm, there are plenty of lenders out there, both for if you're buying in your own personal name and if you're buying in limited company name, that are happy to lend to first-time investors. However, that does come usually with a bit of a stipulation, and that usually means that if you are a first-time investor, you're likely to have to adhere to a few other rules. Now, the first of those, and the major one, is that you own your own main residence. For whatever reason, lenders deem buy-to-let owners or investors less of a risk if you own your own main residence. You've got a history of paying a mortgage, brilliant. So if you've got that, you're going to have lots of opportunities and lots of options when it comes to lending. However, if you start to get a little bit more, let's say, strategic, creative with your strategies, a bit more advanced with your strategies, and you might be looking at HMOs or service accommodations, sometimes they'll also then be looking at experience as well, but I'll come on to that in a little bit. The other thing mainly is that most of the lenders that are happy to lend to first-time investors will want to see some kind of minimum income requirement. If they do so, 15, 20, 25, 30 grand as a minimum income requirement, just to kind of tick a box as well. Now, if you don't own your own main residence, it is actually really, really hard to get a first-time buy-to-let mortgage. The lenders that do it, what they'll actually do is they'll work out it on an affordability basis, very similar to buying your main residence. They'll look at your income, they'll look at your expenditure, they'll look at the surplus, and they'll make a decision as to whether they think it's affordable or not. So it's pretty much like getting a residential mortgage, basically. So the other things to consider really are going to be, again, as I said earlier on, how was the best way of describing this? If you're trying to maybe jump ahead a little bit and you're looking to go for a slightly more advanced strategy than just going into buy-to-let, I always recommend that you should start with a buy-to-let mortgage and work your way up, earn your stripes. And the analogy that I actually give a lot of the time is when you used to play Mario when you were a kid, I know I did, you didn't just go straight to level 2, 3, 4, 5. You had to do level 1, you had to beat the boss, then you got to do level 2. And property, to a certain extent, is pretty similar, I think. Earn your stripes, pass level 1, and get to level 2. Level 1 would be your buy-to-let mortgages. If you want to try and leapfrog that and get into something like HMO, then lenders are, quite rightly, I think, want to see some kind of experience. So it's actually pretty hard as a first-time investor to get an HMO mortgage. So effectively, in that instance, the answer to that question is yes, it is easier to get a mortgage if you have experience. So some lenders will have, you need to have 12-month experience of renting out just a buy-to-let. Others might say you need 2 years experience of renting out an HMO. So you kind of, if you think of lenders as kind of like a hierarchy then, where, your bottom tier, you don't need as much experience, but then you're working your way up to working with more and more and having more options when it comes to lenders, basically. So the more experience that you've got, the easier it's going to be when you work your way up to the more advanced strategies. But, to answer that initial question, which is, is it easier to get a buy-to-let mortgage if you don't have any experience? The answer in my opinion is probably no. The lenders that are available to us nowadays, the plethora of options that we've got in terms of different lenders, we've got more lenders in this country than the rest of Europe put together, and more lenders that are more comfortable and more capable of lending on advanced strategies than anyone else in the UK, in the whole of Europe, probably even the world, to be quite honest with you. So I think that there are so many options available. You shouldn't be put off, or you shouldn't be worried about getting a buy-to-let mortgage if you don't have any experience. If you don't have your own main residence, yes, it's going to be tricky, but there are ways around that. I've had a client recently who didn't have their own main residence, didn't have any experience, but so we went down the strategy of a buy, refurbish and refinance. So we actually bought with a bridge, and we did a bridge to let product. So the lender was actually happy to do the mortgage and the bridge together, which got around this kind of issue with experience and home ownership, because they actually had 6 months worth of home ownership by the time we came to refinance. So that kind of gets around that issue. So for me, the answer to that question really is that it depends. As I said, if it's buy-to-let you're going into, it's not going to cause too much of a problem unless you don't have your own main residence. If you want to go into something a little bit more advanced, then yes, it's going to definitely stand you in much better stead to have a small portfolio, even if it's just 1 or 2 buy-to-lets. And I really think that's a good idea anyway. I think start at the bottom, work your way up. There are going to be things that you're going to learn when you purchase a buy-to-let that you don't want to just jump ahead straight to HMO when you've got to learn a million new things anyway. The jump from buy-to-let to HMO is a little bit like going from A levels to doing a degree. It's a huge jump in terms of the knowledge you need and the information that you need to know about. So that's it. I just wanted to jump on and do a really quick video to go through and answer that question, as it's come up a couple of times, and it came up specifically this morning on a Zoom call that I did, and I just wanted to share it all with you. So wherever you are, stay safe, stay indoors, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.